Visibility is the new currency. Mark my words. We've all heard that attention is wealth. Attention is a currency. And we know that from social media. But now we're flipping the script. We're starting to think about you. We're starting to think about the person behind the microphone, the one doing the speaking. You are the one who is creating such wealth, such abundance through showing up, being seen, and being heard. And so I'll say it again. Visibility is the next currency. So let me ask you a question. Do you get nervous when you speak? Is there anxiety before a performance? Anxiety before you give a talk at work? And what if I told you that that anxiety had nothing to do with confidence? It had nothing to do with actually giving your speech or showing up and speaking or explaining an idea, and had everything to do with how you relate to your power? And what if I additionally told you that it hinges on how you relate to money? Because as you're going to see in this podcast episode, that there is a deep correlation to wealth, money, and how we are in relationship or not in relationship with money, our consciousness there, and our relationship with visibility. Because let's say it again, visibility is wealth. And therefore, visibility is a form of currency. And this is the truest form of wealth as I see it. Anyone can have an idea. Anyone can be a creator, but to be able to place your voice in the center of it and then articulate your message in a way that is true to you, and it is in a way that is seductive and sticky and delicious, and using that vocal honey is what makes you someone stand out, a standout individual from the crowd. But we have to understand really what visibility currency is. And that is my phrase. That's what we're talking about. Visibility currency, and the thing that happens when we're actually being seen and heard. So grab your notes, grab your pen, buckle up, baby, because this is truly not only a juicy topic filled with anecdotal, mind-blowing mic drop moments, but also this is new. No one is talking about this. So let's get going, climb this mountain together on this new adventure and this new topic. First of all, what is visibility and why might it trigger you? And even if you're someone who is comfortable with being seen and heard, there is a next level where we are eventually going to be being on stage in front of more people, or our reel goes viral, or we get that raise with more money and more responsibility. Whenever there is more, our nervous system doesn't care if it's more money, more apples. It's just more. We don't care if it's more responsibility, more bills, or more butterflies. More is more. And if you do not have a nervous system and an identity that is set up to read more as safe, then more will always feel like a threat. That is exactly what's happening when you are on stage or using your voice in a high stakes, highly visible moment where you are putting yourself out there. More is happening to you. But the cool thing is this. Listen. You don't have anxiety or feel pressure because you're lacking confidence or the moment itself is just high stakes. You're actually reading your power being reflected back to you. And that's why you're anxious. We feel our power reflected back to us through the audience's attention on us. And so the mirror effect is happening. Your audience, your listener, your clients, your potential clients are all holding up little mirrors, reflecting back to you your power via the fact that they have their eyes and their ears and their most valuable commodity in this lifetime, time. They are giving you their time, which is a really big deal. It's why I feel so honored whenever I speak. It's why I feel honored that you're listening to this podcast or watching it on the YouTube channel. I feel honored. You don't have an infinite amount of this stuff. And you're choosing to be here with me in this moment. Are you kidding me? That's the coolest thing ever. I'm so grateful. When we think of it like that, our nervous system actually can become overwhelmed because it's the most tender, real commodity there is. It's what we're all seeking. It's what we want more of. It's what we hate that we don't have enough of. It's what we fight for every day, time. And so you being visible is you being in commerce with, you being in exchange with the attention that people are giving you. And that is why it feels so big, because it is. So let's tie this to money. If I am someone who, when receiving a large amount of cash, I immediately am happy, but then immediately stress out. Subconsciously, I stress out. What happens is I will spend that money. Why do we spend the money? Wealth consciousness tells us it's because we do not have a identity or a nervous system that is a match for that amount of money. So when you receive a large amount of money, what happens instead of you receiving it with ease and pleasure and gratitude is that we end up trying to get rid of it because it doesn't match our identity. It feels like a threat. The nervous system feels overwhelmed. And we start to find ways of spending that money. Suddenly there's more bills in the mail. Suddenly there's just people needing our help because we want to spend that money, that currency, to get back down to a comfortable baseline where we are broke or struggling, because that is the story we're used to. It's the same thing with visibility. Okay, so stay with me. When you get a large amount of visibility, just like a large amount of cash, if you don't have the identity of someone who feels safe with a large amount of visibility, currency, you will try to spend that wealth, just like with the money, to get back down to a baseline of struggle. Because as much as it sucks, that's what you're used to. We're used to the struggle. We're used to saying things like, I don't know when my business is just going to hit. Where is my next client? Why is it so hard to feel like I'm fitting in? Why am I so awkward when I'm at social gatherings? Why can't I get invited to stage like they are? How come when I'm on stage, I feel like just awkward and like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I get done speaking and I'm wondering, what did I say up there? Because I blanked out again. And if you're not having that conversation out loud, your peers might be, because it's a very common thing to complain about what isn't happening. And it's a very small group of people in your lives, if you're lucky enough to find them, that are actually going to be celebrating and being grateful for everything and being positive. So most of the time, you yourself or other people you know are really in the habit of complaining. So here comes a wave of success and you can't hold it. And what that ends up looking like is us spending or exchanging quickly to get rid of the big energy charge we just got in our body because we're reading it as anxiety. But what is it really? We just went over it. It's your power being reflected back to you. So really, it's not anxiousness or pressure. It's a lack of familiarity with our own power. Did that just land? It is a lack of familiarity, therefore a lack of comfort, ease with our bigness, with just how freaking powerful we are. Because we're uncomfortable and because all that power doesn't match our paradigm, we spend. Now, what does it look like to spend visibility currency? It's very obvious what it looks like to spend regular currency. But visibility currency is going to look like this. It's going to look like you saying yes and then pulling out last minute to a speaking engagement. It could look like you suddenly getting sick because our nervous system, which is attached to our subconscious, which is therefore attached to our adrenals, attached to the hormones, by you being very afraid of a moment of visibility, the whole body goes into an inflammatory response. And so we can get sick because literally the amount of currency that's coming our way has shocked the body with a trauma, like a mini trauma response basically to your body. It also could look like you going forward with the speaking engagement, but your speech becomes rushed because again, we want to spend, exchange, and deplete our power because we're much more comfortable with depleted power than to be in abundance with our power. Just nod your head a little bit if this is making sense. I can feel you energetically. Good. I'm glad this is making sense. So in a conversation, the question comes around to you. You're at a round table meeting, and all of a sudden your heart starts to race and your palms get sweaty and you're reading everyone's faces in a hyper way. And we rush to our head because we don't want to feel any of that in the body. All of that is the response of someone who is reading the visibility incorrectly, and it's coming across as a threat. So in that moment, that person will start to speak quicker. There might be more filler words. There's going to be some vocal fry. There's going to be some uptalk at the end. There's going to be excessive hand gestures. There might be this frantic looking back and forth or avoiding eye contact altogether. Some people that I work with are on the opposite side of this, where they completely shut down. That used to be me, by the way. I would be terrified of the spotlight, so much so where I was medicated. A lot of you guys know that, for public speaking anxiety, because I didn't believe that my voice was safe. I always believed my voice was a vulnerability and a liability. And so instead of going forward with a full response of what I wanted to say, I would just say one or two sentences and then shut down. All of that is how we quickly spend our energetic visibility currency to get back to a baseline we're familiar with, which is broke, no Facebook invites, no customers, no clients, struggling with wealth in the bank account. These stories that we have that keep us stuck in the struggle. But where we get to go is to trust that the more we show up, the more our wealth multiplies. The more we use our voice and open up our mouths and unmute and speak from what truly matters inside of us, the more we build and compound and build interest upon the visibility wealth that is ours, so that your name is spoken in rooms when you're not even there, so that people are thinking about you and the lessons that you teach them, again, when you're not even in the room or days after they just had a meeting with you. This is how we multiply your power. This is how we multiply your visibility currency and ultimately the wealth, which is your birthright. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual strategies on how to get comfortable with your power. Because unless we have some action steps, this is just concept. But I really want to give you these 4 tools that have changed everything for me and help me get off on my pills and help me not only become someone who feels comfortable with speaking, but is no longer chasing perfectionism. I'm no longer chasing proving or pleasing to you or any audience member, right? I'm just here in my body, speaking my truth in a calm way that feels really good in my body. And believe it or not, that is my wealth, and that is your wealth too. So let's talk about the 4 practices that are going to help you get there to where your visibility currency is something that you are just cashing checks on all day long. Number 1 is to start now. Let's think about, first and foremost, how do you make a friend? You might be like, why are you asking me that, Kimberly? What does that have to do with power and being comfortable and visibility currency? Well, I'll tell you. When you want to make a friend, the first thing that actually has to happen is you have to see that person frequently. And you have to get into this cadence and this rhythm of frequently seeing that person, and not only frequently seeing them, but getting closer in proximity, talking more, having longer discussions, starting to have lunch and coffee together, going for walks, and then sharing. And that's how bonds are formed. And then once you have a bond with someone, and you're familiar with them, typically that's when we start to like people. And then when we like people, we start to trust them. Same thing for your power. Remember, power is actually what's being reflected back to you in a moment of high visibility that up until this moment, you were reading as anxiety. So instead of anxiety, we're flipping the words. We're now just calling it what it is, power. Now, the name of the game is we need to get you familiar with your power so that you like it, know about it, and trust it. And then you want to stick around. Basically, we need you to befriend your power. So how are you going to do that? Well, the same way you make a normal human friend. You need to build proximity and frequency to your power. So what that means is you need to be going now. You need to be setting up dates with your power. Power dates look like you actually hitting the record button and making that podcast. There's no shortcuts. The only way to get closer with your power is to experience your power through your voice, to get those thoughts out, to lead us to the highlands, to get us to where your people need to be going and help us save the day, right? So get on the microphone, unmute, push record, make your content, rent the room, do the workshop. At the very least, just start recording yourself on your cell phone and watching yourself with the playback to start to get used to your nervous system, washing the nervous system with your power. Start now. Number 2, collect evidence. We like lists, right? When we see a list of what we've gotten done, we go, damn, I'm a pretty cool person. I'm a pretty organized person. I've done a lot this month. But when we don't write things down, it's very easy to forget all of the great ways, all the great things that we've done before. So I want you to collect evidence and in your journal, list out the things over the past 3 months or 6 months that you have done that have been really freaking cool. What are the projects you've started? What are the projects you completed? Ideas, trips you've planned, really amazing meals that you've baked, conversations that you started. Believe it or not, all of these things are evidence that you are a thought leader and a very powerful person that exists in this world. And when you see that list of all of the statistical evidence of power moves that you made, small, medium, and large, it is very hard to doubt yourself after that. Number 3 is a good one. And once I started embracing this more, as scary as it was in the beginning, I have moved faster and faster into my next iterations of power because power never really stays the same. You're always going to have quantum leaps. You're always going to be up leveling your power based on the needs of your business, your life around you. And it's really important that you're fluid with your power. And the way you are fluid with your power and can evolve and be chameleon-like with your power is the same way that you start becoming comfortable with your power. And it's through these steps. So this next one is about protecting your power, or sometimes I say guard your greatness. Protecting your power, literally, I'm talking about vampires in your life. Distance yourself from energy draining people, people who gaslight you, people who don't believe in your dreams, people who make fun of you, people who doubt you, or just are silent when you drop a big idea. First of all, you got to stop telling your big ideas to people who aren't dreaming big themselves. Okay. Let's start making sure that we're running with a circle of other women who are like, yeah, I'm dreaming big too. If you don't have that circle, you need to get inside a Vocal Honey group coaching. Okay, the link is below. You can go ahead and put your $49 deposit down now, and that will hold your spot for the next cohort that happens this spring. So now back to it. Boundary crossers, people who are fixers, people who are constantly saying you need to change yourself or up level or become more healed or whatever. These people are sucking your energy and they're making you question your power. Get rid of them because energy leaks like that distort your view and distort your relationship of your own power. And finally, number 4, all of these concepts are fantastic, but none of them will actually work in your life until you shift your identity. This is about that deeper subconscious work. Because you don't really have a problem with visibility. You don't have a problem with explaining yourself. You don't have a problem with being in authority. You don't have a problem with making more money. You have the identity of someone who has those problems. So this won't really stick. Nothing is ever going to really change in your life when we're just trying out a concept in our mind and thinking about transformation. You actually have to become the person who has already transformed. And then, because that work has been done, your actions, beliefs, and behaviors, your reactions, your decisions, all those things pour out of the identity that you have. The work is to tap into the subconscious mind that controls everything and have the identity planted in there through repetition and belief and energy and emotion to become the person who is comfortable with a high amount of wealth through visibility. That person does not read anxiety at all. They are very excited by being highly visible and they don't spend their visibility currency. Instead, they take that shit to the bank and they let it build interest. They want more visibility, in fact, and they become wealthy through their visibility. Remember, visibility is the next form of wealth. And if you want to be more wealthy in your visibility bank account, you have to become the identity first, ahead of the visibility itself, ahead of the actual invitations to the stage, ahead of you pushing record, ahead of you making that reel and going viral. You need to be visualizing it and mentally rehearsing it and then having a very strong emotional reaction to that. Repeated several times a day. That is how you, on a neurological level, become the person who has no issue and is extremely wealthy when it comes to visibility. If this resonated with you deeply and you want to learn how to do this work on a more intimate level, then the Vocal Honey container is really for you. But you can get in the wait list now before it fills up with your deposit. The link is below and some other amazing resources for you as well.